must step aside. Pravin must decline the offer if the president makes the offer. Allow himself a chance to go and clear his name. There is a ruling by a Chapter 9 institution.
The EFF siding with the public protector, calling for Pravin Gordhan to face justice. The running battle between Gordhan and the public protector is now in court. Busisiwe Mkhwebane found that the minister violated the constitution. Gordhan has asked the court to declare her report unconstitutional. So who's transgressed the constitution in this case, and what does this legal battle mean for both their futures? Tonight we have in our Johannesburg studio Nicole Fritz, Executive Officer of Freedom Under Law. Kathy Powell, Associate Professor in Public Law at the University of Cape Town, joins us from our studio there. Very warm welcome to both of you ladies. Nicole Fritz, tell us what Pravin Gordhan is hoping to achieve from this latest move.
Well, he is obviously hoping that the courts will set aside the report of the public protector that was issued last Friday. They have listed several grounds as to why they believe the report should be set aside. One of those grounds, and we know, is that only 48 hours after having received the submissions of the implicated parties, the public protector releases her report on the eve of what is an anticipated cabinet decision. That length of time suggests that there's been no meaningful engagement with the submissions of the parties, my understanding is that they will be...
Sorry, that she had this well-prepared...
Exactly, that due process, procedural fairness has not been observed. And that there is this attempt to impugn him, to disqualify him from serving in cabinet and from occupying political office.
And Kathy Powell, I mean, your feeling from that side, and tell us more about what he is disputing in the actual report.
Okay, well, I think I should say up front that I also think, like he does, that the report is wrong and unconstitutional. He makes a couple of specific challenges to the substance as well. I haven't read his challenges, but I have read the report. And what is noticeable in the report is that the public protector uses a definition of retirement which is fairly off the wall and goes against the definition used in all the consideration of this case so far. So she comes up with a strange, abstruse legal interpretation of the legislation, which I think is going to be overturned, in order to make, as Nicole has pointed out, a very, very far-reaching finding. And in this case, unlike in the Vrede Dairy Project case, she demands that the money be returned that was misappropriated, she feels, because the legislation was incorrectly interpreted. So it's a matter of challenging the procedural fairness, the substantive approach to the problem, which was very surprising in the light of how well this issue has already been aired and considered and dealt with. If you consider the Nugent Commission, the NPA itself deciding that there was no case against Gordhan, that he had acted lawfully. He acted on the advice of 6 people. So there's that. But then there's also the consequences that she's trying to attach to what looks like, by her own account, a misinterpretation of the law.
Okay, let's listen to what Julius Malema had to say again. He says the public protector's findings are binding.
Once the public protector is pronounced on remedial actions, they are effective until set aside by the court of law. Even if you launch a review application.
Nicole, does he have a point?
Well, the fact is that she has she has ordered that the president take disciplinary action in respect of the minister, and that the money be repaid. That report is now being challenged, but there is the findings of the report don't suggest that Minister Gordhan should not be able to serve in public office whilst the court is adjudicating in respect of this issue. And so he is not disqualified from serving in public office.
Okay, Kathy, I mean, if this is indeed overturned, what sort of impact would it have on both their careers? Because this would be the third thing that she's had overturned, and even if he is cleared, would there be a lasting stain, possibly?
I think if the judgment is if the report is overturned, it won't be a stain on Pravin Gordhan's reputation at all. In fact, her integrity is so much in doubt after last week's High Court judgment that I'm not sure that his reputation has taken that much of a knock now. It has, obviously the report has been heralded by some of Gordhan's opponents, but there are many people who simply cannot take it seriously. Can I just add to Nicole's point, it's not just while we're waiting for a court to adjudicate that Pravin Gordhan could continue to serve as cabinet minister, it's also while the president considers his disciplinary action, which is also a process that has to be gone through. Part of that process will be working out quite how bad the misdeed was. So he can carry on as a finance minister. If her report is overturned, which I'm expecting, there will simply be more evidence that she's actually not fit for this office that she's holding. I think after last Monday's High Court judgment overturning her Vrede Dairy Project report, we already had the evidence we needed.
And Nicole, I mean, there are also calls for him to face the Integrity Commission. We've seen several members making their way through their halls there. Would that make a difference, or they are as toothless as we suspect?
No, I think the real concern here is that what we're seeing is a rehash. Kathy's already referred to the fact that the Nugent Commission has turned over this very issue, has found that there was no illegality. We know that as far back as 2016, there was an attempt to charge Minister Gordhan, Mr. Pillay, Mr. Magashule with these issues that are canvassed in the report. That ultimately led to one of the most notorious episodes in the National Prosecuting Authority's history, where there was a climb down and, the admission on the part of the National Prosecuting Authority that there was no evidence to support any wrongdoing. I think, it is true that the Public Protector's Office is a very weighty one. But again, as Kathy has indicated, we have not just 3, but in fact 4 judgments that call into question the Public Protector's understanding of the law and her understanding of this office. And if you compare the actions, the conduct of the Public Protector in respect to the Vrede Dairy Farm matter, and how she narrows her scope, cites resource constraints in order not to undertake a proper investigation, but nonetheless, with the supposed resource constraints limiting her office, looks to rehash a matter that is 10 years old.
And so, Kathy, what sort of impact do you think it'll have on the office? Because obviously you think it's an incredibly important one. Is it open for attack now, and this sort of criticism, considering how important her role is? Or are you frustrated that actually this time could be better spent finding the real criminals?
No, she's open to attack now. She has been for a while, and it's actually very important that South Africans go on the attack because we're talking about the rule of law here. And if the Public Protector is either incompetent or compromised, and the latest judgment casts doubt on her honesty and talks about the impression that she's certainly creating that she's acting from ulterior motives, if that is the case, then the Public Protector, that office, is no longer looking after the poor and vulnerable, and we all have a duty to step in and make sure it does. So no, we shouldn't be looking for real criminals, or we can do that as well, but that's a separate issue. What we've got here is we've got to ask the question whether somebody is, in an unbiased manner, correctly applying the law to the facts, such that the money lost to corruption is being reclaimed. Now, if she can insist that 1 million gets paid back for Ivan Pillay's faulty retirement funding, but not even ask where the 200 million went from the Vrede Dairy Farm, then we've got a problem.
And Nicole, I mean, it really shows you the politics at play, right? Still, the tussle over the cabinet and how this is playing out on every front.
Absolutely.
You've got the EFF jumping in there.
No, exactly. And what this is happening, it's happening in a context where there is a fight back against the attempts to clean up state capture. And state capture hasn't only been about clothing certain people with impunity so that they can essentially steal from state coffers and ensure that we can't realise our constitutional project of delivering on healthcare, education, housing. But it's also, the state capture has been about hollowing out institutions and removing persons that offer accountability. And we've seen that in respect of the attacks on the National Prosecuting Authority, hollowing out that institution, putting in place ciphers. That's true too of institutions like the Hawks. And we've seen a concerted effort to move against Minister Gordhan, whether that was in 2016 in respect of the charges brought by the National Prosecuting Authority, whether it's been the EFF sort of challenging, protesting outside the Zondo Commission, protesting, attempting to intimidate Minister Gordhan and his family when he sought to bring testimony before the Zondo Commission. And now it's hard not to read this report from the Public Protector in that light, in this context, as a deliberate attempt to neutralise Minister Gordhan and the threat that he poses to those who are intent on enabling the state capture project, on continuing the state capture.
Fascinating. Nicole Fritz, Kathy Powell, thank you very much. Now, after postponing his swearing-in last week, David Mabuza is now an MP. What's next for the man known as the Cat, and how will this impact President Ramaphosa's cabinet announcement? We discuss that next.